I just finished watching the first season of Kaiju number 8, and actually, to be honest with you, I ended up watching this because I heard about it in Fortnite. I heard a lot of hype behind it. I started asking a couple people about it, and apparently it was a pretty good show. And honestly, from season 1, it was a good show. I have a couple issues with it, but overall it was pretty good. I'm going to be breaking down the plot, the entire first season, what I liked, what I didn't like. Spoilers ahead, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. So, the story is brought to us with our main character named Kafka Hibino, and I always forget the last name. I always hear Sir or Kafka. But anyways, so he's our main character, and we're brought to a very, very interesting and different story when it comes to, like, stories told about kaiju, because what you typically don't see, and this is something that I spoke about, what I liked about Invincible, is it kind of shows, and I don't want to say it's like realistic because obviously kaiju aren't real, but what if this actually was a real thing? We're seeing cleanup crews, and this is what Kafka is doing, and it's doing all of these like disgusting, gross jobs, but it's set up to know, like, okay, this guy kind of like knows the ins and outs of kaiju that ends up coming into play, but nobody ever even thinks about, like, okay, after these giant battles, what happens? Who cleans them up? So these jobs, they take very long. He's kind of like depressed, walking through life, isn't happy with what he wanted to do because he had dreams of joining the defense force, the people actually fighting for the kaiju, but all he's really capable of doing is cleaning up after the kaiju. It wasn't until he ends up meeting his partner Reno, and Reno is very, very like motivated. He wants to join the defense force. He wants to learn everything that they can. They end up sharing a little bit of a bond together, and that kind of kicks Kafka out of his, like just neutral mode. Hey, I'm gonna be stuck in this job forever. So he's gonna give it one last chance to join the defense force, and they're setting it up to be like, obviously this dude's gonna end up joining the defense force. And the other thing too, and this is my problem with, and I don't even think it's Kaiju number 8, I think it's just anime shows in general. Kafka ends up seeing Mino, which is his childhood friend, and they promise to fight kaiju together. Wasn't even a love story or anything like that. To be honest, it's probably going to end up being a love story. And excuse my ignorance, I don't know if there's a manga or manga, forget how to pronounce it all the time, for every single anime show. I would imagine that there is. My point being, I don't know what the story is going to come to be, but I would imagine that they're going to end up together. They're going to love each other. They're going to fight kaiju together. But the only thing that I didn't like is, like, I think it's a weak motivation for the main character. And I don't like it. And the reason I mentioned that, like, all anime shows kind of do it is, like, what am I thinking? Like, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is Attack on Titan did not do this. And that's another thing that I had a little bit of an issue with the show with. It's a little Attack on Titan-y, okay? like, not like it's a good show, but I could see them where they got their inspiration from. So those are the only things I didn't like, because don't worry, we're going to get into the things that I did like, because the show actually ended up getting pieced together. Once we got towards the end of the season, I really, really liked it. Might as well just get both of those out of the way, right? So I don't like the story with Minu. I don't care. I think it's weak. I think it's weird that the anime shows do that. It's like, oh my god, no, that girl's so cool. Like, as if that would exist in real life. Like a bunch of guys in the military looking up to like their commanding officer as a girl and be like, oh my god, Minu, she's the best. What was it like talking to her? Like, it just makes me cringe. I think it's stupid. And I think it's weird. Like, it would be one thing at least, like, what? Maybe he had a relationship with Minu at some point, but no, it's this girl that he just made a promise to. I think it's dumb. I didn't like the motivation for the main character. The only other thing I didn't like about this show was it's a clear Attack on Titan ripoff, but I'm okay with it because they took it in a little bit of a new direction. I don't know, like, I just keep looking at it, I'm like, okay, how much of that was your original idea? But at the end of the day, they did end up delivering with it. So, my two issues with the show. Anyways, continuing on. The reason that I ended up bringing up Minu is because she ended up saving the day from the first real kaiju attack. When the kaijus attack, super cool. Loved all of that. Anyways, Kafka ended up getting, extra motivated. At the end of the first episode, we see a kaiju, and I don't know how, and I would imagine this is going to get explained as the show continues on, but a kaiju just decided to crawl into his mouth and take control of him. So he has now become a kaiju himself, except he's like this humanoid form of a kaiju. So the two end up having to escape because obviously you're going to believe your friend. I mean, I don't know if you really would believe your friend if you figured out that he just turned into a kaiju, but he ended up saving a day. A little girl ended up saying, oh my god, well, that's the good kaiju. And then all of a sudden there's this like, okay, the good kaiju is out there in the public. What's going on? He didn't transform for months. He's been holding it back. He passes his entrance exams, or he enters the entrance exams, excuse me, and this kaiju has been deemed Kaiju number 8, hence the title of the show. We are then introduced to Kikaru, who I didn't really like it first, but then as the show went on, I thought she did a good job, but she was obviously, like, she's a very, very skilled fighter, and she noticed something off about Kafka immediately, showed her that he could lift a car, and then he was a very capable soldier in himself. But as we actually end up getting into the entrance exams, it's like on a field where they actually put some kaiju in a, I guess, just a big city area. I don't know if it's been evacuated or something like that, but we're also introduced to the vice captain, who I ended up liking. He was pretty funny. The only reason he kind of kept Kafka around is because he was laughing at him. He's the only guy to get 0% on all of his suit output. I don't remember exactly how they explained it worked, but you get the abilities based on how much power your body gets auto-activated, something like that. I don't really recall, but he doesn't do a good job. He can't transform into a kaiju because he's keeping it on the down low, obviously, because they're just going to use him, and they explained it more where they're just going to, like, dissect him, use him for a weapon. I get it. I would keep it to myself as well. But the reason that he ended up getting accepted into the Defense Force is because he displayed knowledge about the kaiju, which makes sense because obviously he was cleaning them up. He was able to strategize, and he ended up making a Captain America type heroic sacrifice. By this point, I still wasn't like too invested in the show. It was a little bit after this that made me go, okay, I'm interested now. And where I actually started getting interested in this once we figured out that there were humanoid kaiju in there. It wasn't just like random monsters attacking. There's some strategy upon it. That I'm most interested in. And this is what I was talking about recently when we were talking about reviewing Invincible. And I think I drew a conclusion to Invincible earlier, but regardless, it's fresh in my mind. It's a little refreshing to have some bad guys just being bad guys for the sake of bad guys. I would imagine that's what it is. These kaiju seem just evil. I like that there's intelligent kaiju out there. It's not just new monster, new monster, new monster. There's some sort of plan. And the show does a really, really good job at just capturing like their essence. As soon as the humanoid one comes, they really make it known. Very powerful. Anyways, the first one ended up fighting Kikaru. We get some flashbacks and the storyline with her father, which we're going to get a little bit more into. He demands perfection. She wasn't able to deliver, but then Kafka arrives, transforms into the kaiju, ends up saving the day. A callback to Attack on Titan again, and spoilers ahead. I don't know if I'm going to mention anything else about Attack on Titan, so you got 5 seconds on that one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It reminds me of when Eren first transformed, the same kind of deal, saving the day just completely out of nowhere. That's what takes me out of it a little bit. Just a little bit, but again, they still ended up doing a good job. I got more into it as the show ended up going on. And Kikaru ended up keeping his secret. You should, after all of that. But that was the first episode that kind of hooked me a little bit. I enjoyed seeing the strategy behind the kaijus. There was one that's intelligent, and then we see another one just in some random apartment. We can see them transform. They can disguise as humans, watching a newscast, speaking, all of that. But then we continue on. They end up training a little bit more. We learn a little bit more about each character. They start bonding a little bit, and there really isn't anything to mention, and there really isn't anything to mention up with the next fight that comes about either. But this was probably my favorite arc in the entire season. I'm a big action guy. I'm very pleased by it. So I liked watching all of like the meteors come down, the kaiju emergent, like just coming out of nowhere, all the little kaiju. The vice captain ended up taking into effect too. We got to see his power after learning a little bit how he handles sword fighting, how he handles just the smaller kaiju. He's really good at fighting them. I loved all of that. And there's another brand new humanoid kaiju that came up, obviously more powerful, way more vindictive. It was just, again, really cool to see. I wish there was more that I could really expand upon, but there was a lot of destroying kaiju. There's a lot of figuring out what to do. There's a lot of like, oh, Kafka, you can't transform, that type of stuff. It was all tense. It did the job. There's just nothing to break down from it. And then in between that and this next fight that we're going to be talking about, not the final fight, but the final, like, just public kaiju battle fight. In between this, we have, like, a couple moments again. They're training. Kafka ended up, like, becoming an actual defense force instead of just, I think it was a cadet they made him. But regardless, not a ton to really break down there. He visits Minu at some point, and he just calls her by her name. She's weird about it for some reason, which is, again, I think the whole relationship between Kafka and Minu is kind of dumb. I don't like that. I think the show really has its strength when we are actually battling the kaiju. They come back. There is an even bigger kaiju threat. Really cool battle. Again, there isn't too much we could break down. We saw the vice captain really take it on, a little bit of his backstory. I think that fight went on for like an entire episode. I could be wrong about that, or maybe a couple of episodes. Regardless, Him and Mina end up saving the day, one from long range, one from short range. They show off what they can do, and they look like they're going to overwhelm this like brand new kaiju who is going to kidnap humans, look for kaiju number 8, all that type of stuff. The success is short-lived. The kaiju transformed into, I don't know what to call it, like a bomb. The kaiju didn't want to go down, so it transformed itself and was going to explode, I guess, the entire city. This is where Kafka ends up transforming in public, showing everybody, saving the day. And this was weird, okay? This was weird because it was cool. It was a long time coming. It was only a matter of time before, he transformed and then joined the team just like they did with Attack on Titan. It's another type military type show. You would think that they would trust him though, okay? With Kaiju number 8, he fought the vice captain, didn't hurt him, was just retreating. Makes sense. You have people on the defense force completely vouching for him. You have Minu vouching for him, and he just saved the day completely. And he destroyed other kaijus. Why are we not trusting this guy? Why wouldn't you want to use him to their advantage? I know that's the conclusion they kind of, ended up coming to, but come on. There was a big weight to put Kafka on trial, and what they figured out from the x-rays was that his heart has transformed into a kaiju core, and that's not something that I talked about. Obviously, if you watch the show, the kaiju have their core, they can move it, and it's like their heart. That's what you need to destroy to get rid of the kaiju, and Kafka no longer has a heart, he has a core. So, the Kikaru's father, I forget her exact his name, but he is like the biggest baddie of all time. He's the top guy. He was going to make Kafka prove that he was human, so he just kept beating him and beating him and beating him, had him release his restraints. He didn't want to fight, but he was forced to because he was going to die, and the kaiju inside him obviously didn't want to die, took over, put Kafka into his subconscious, which again, Attack on Titan, same thing. You had the same deal, except instead of like being inside the Titan, it being like pinkish orange, it was just black. The problem was it was still cool. That's the issue. I see all of these things they're kind of ripping off from Attack on Titan, but I still think it's cool. Maybe it's because I liked Attack on Titan, but you get the point. Now, when he actually was forced to transform into Kaiju number 8, this was the best part of the entire season, in my opinion, because you could see the like natural way that the kaiju is, the horror, the way that like it was so powerful, it was so ruthless. And the reason obviously is because Kikuru's father the reason he could keep up is because he is using the remains of Kaiju number 2, and that's what they were going to do with Kaiju number 8. But we also had your classic anime-ish moment when the girl ended up screaming like, "Oh my god, you need to just prove that you're still human," and then he ended up proving that he's human. He just broke out of that. And honestly, the way they visualized that I thought was pretty cool, of him like breaking out of those restraints, gaining consciousness again, putting the kaiju in the subconscious, which I think is weird. Maybe now they're talking about a little bit Jujutsu Kaisen-ish type thing too. I don't know. Could you imagine after everything that I'm saying, it figured out like this story came before both Jujutsu Kaisen and Attack on Titan? But they had a really cool fight. I loved the kaiju coming out. And then it all ended up, he didn't end up finishing the delivering blow. It was, my name is Kafka. I am not Kaiju number 8. But the problem was, he obviously is Kaiju number 8. Kikaru's all happy. Her father didn't end up killing Kafka because we all know that Kafka's a good guy. And the conclusion that they end up coming to is they will use Kaiju number 8 as a weapon, but he is determined to prove that he's a human. I don't know how they're going to possibly do that, but I would have liked to see, like, because I know he made the officers stop and say, "I'm not a weapon." Instead of, "I'll prove it to you," why not just be like, "I'm not a weapon. I didn't kill you. There you go. Good enough." And after everything that he did, it didn't make sense to me why they still don't trust him, unless they're just like sadistic people and they just want to dissect him. Doesn't even matter though. The other thing that I forgot to mention was, I don't know, man. I find it difficult to believe like the motivation. If we're talking about Attack on Titan, with Eren, with watching his mother die, wanting to actually go kill the Titans, that makes sense. That's good motivation. The way that he ended up getting through Kaiju number 8 and the way that he ended up overcoming the greatest thing that he's probably ever been through is because he had a call back to Mina, holding hands with her. "I'll fight the kaiju with you. We're going to be in the defense force together." Again, I'm just not buying it. But speaking of Mina, she ended up, vouching for him, his character, and they kind of just dismissed it. And with that battle, with Kafka being free, puts an end to the season. We are brought to a post-credit scene where Kaiju number 9 is still alive, plotting a next move. We know the season's not over. He's probably the series is not over. He's probably going to come back with greater kaiju, and I can't wait to watch it. The fight scenes is really where this thing shined, but couple issues I've had here and there. Ultimately, I did think it was a good show. I'm excited for the second season. Apparently, it's coming out soon, but I actually just got onto the show. Let me know what you thought about Kaiju number 8 down below, and if you're interested in an Attack on Titan review, you can check out Season 1 right here. I would love to have you over there. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Take care.